Good evening and welcome to the study of Tanya. Tonight we will begin chapter 51, Perek Nun Aleph. The last three chapters of the book, beginning 51, then 52 and 53, the rabbi is going to speak about a separate topic, which, based on what we studied thus far, will be able to apply and understand better. And let me give you some introduction, then share the important component of the chapter. We know that in the universe, there are important or holy parts that are much holier than other parts. For example, Jerusalem, the Holy Land, the Temple Mount, the Holy of Holies. There were places where every Jew is not allowed to enter. There were places where anything that grows, plants, tithe needs to be brought. There are every 6 years, the 7-year sabbatical. Locations, physical locations, which are different from other locations. And the rabbi is going to address this question that if God is everywhere, and God is not divided into components, what makes one place holier than the other? Seemingly because God is there, or God is more felt. But after all, it should be everywhere. The second point the rabbi is going to address, and we're going to go back to chapter 35, where the Yenuka, the young child, shared the following, that a person should always walk with a covering over the head because the divine presence is over the head of every person. And the human being is like a candle. Divinity, godliness is above the head. The body is the wick, and we need a oil, the fuel. And the fuel are the mitzvot. Every time I every time I perform a mitzvah, I give tzedakah, I keep Shabbat, I eat kosher, I am adding fuel to the flame. And the rabbi is going to ask several questions. A, why is godliness only above the head? Why the Yenuka in the Zohar says that it's above the head? Godliness is everywhere. You cannot separate God and say here and not there. Number two, why mitzvot are the fuel? What happened to Torah study? What's wrong with Torah study? After all, if in Kabbalah, chokhmah, wisdom, Torah, and oil are synonymous. They are always compared to oil. Yet, he's saying that the fuel, the oil that keeps the flame alive is the good deeds and not the Torah. Yes.
The head covering.
What?
What was it covering the head?
We studied in chapter 35. I don't want to get back to it. Okay? But maybe I should just mention very briefly. The Zohar brings in the name of the Yenuka. The Yenuka was a child of Rabbi Mnona Saba. Saba is an elder. Saba is his grandfather in Hebrew. But Saba in the original Aramaic word is older, an elderly person. Rabbi Mnona Saba had a child that was a prodigy, a very unique, talented man that had connected to God in a certain way that he knew the Torah very well. And he makes the following Aramaic statement in the Zohar, that a man should never walk without covering their head for more than 4 cubits. He's referring to a male, not a female. Why? Because godliness rests above the head of a human. And therefore, to show reverence to godliness, we need to cover our head. And he goes on to say, in order for godliness to remain above the head, he must realize that the body is the wick that holds the flame. And the oil, the fuel that keeps the flame alive are the good deeds. We study it in chapter 35 at great length. We're going to come back to it. We are going to talk about the body parts As we know, there are 248 body parts in the humans. How were they created? We will discuss also the neshama, the soul of a human. Where is it resting? And the last thing we're going to talk is about what's unique about the brains, moach. What's so special about the brains? Before we get to the reading, I would like, based on what we studied so far in so many chapters, in addition, today with DNA, it is so easy to comprehend. Usually the commentators, the rabbis of previous generations will dedicate many, many pages to explaining this chapter, but I believe, to me, I'm sorry, it was very easy, and I would like to move on. I want to keep you in the loop, so to say, to move on. So in the next 3 chapters, that would be the Rebbe's dedication to the Shechinah. Shechinah is divine presence. It's a female, it's a feminine that rests in the universe. The Rabbi is going to ask, as I said before, how come there are different locations? By the way, when we pray to God, which direction do we pray to? Does it matter? It does. Which direction? To the east. Why to the east? That's where the temple is. And I'm asking you, God is everywhere, not just in the east. Not only that, in Jerusalem itself, not always is the east. You know that, right? Yep. In Jerusalem, you walk into synagogues, when you want to pray the Amidah and there is no minyan, you don't ask where is east, or you don't take the compass, where is east. You just ask where is the temple. And for some it's north, some it's west, some it's south, it all depends. Right. And my question is, what's so special about that? And by the way, it applies to other components of our life, and that is relationship. What is so special about my spouse, about my child, about my parents? Why is there a uniqueness to them? After all, every human being is created in God's image and is cherished by God equally. No one is greater value to God than another. We all are the same. How come we look and value other persons based on our unique relationship with in different ways? And that's what the Rabbi is going to address here. But we're going to talk, the Rabbi is going to talk in Tanya about our relationship with God. But I should ask you to bear in mind relationship to a spouse, relationship to children, to siblings, etc. And you will see how it plays out. In addition, the Rabbi, I think, I'm not sure, but I think the Rabbi is going to bring up the idea of the ground has the power to grow, but it will grow particular trees or weeds or plants based on the seed that's planted in it. Now, the seed does not have the power to create a tree out of it. It's the ground that gives nutrition and whatever it needs, vitamins, whatever it is. Why is this how does the ground knows that this avocado seed or branch should yield an avocado tree and not a cherry tree? There has to be a combination here that on one hand, the ground has the power to create or to produce any type of tree, any type of plant, yet it will be dedicated or concentrating on a particular one based on the seeds that's planted in the ground. Unlike other parts of our life where we can pick and choose, the ground will have no choice, so to say. The ground, even though the ground has a multiple, unlimited resource, and the ground, the same soil, the same spot can grow sunflowers. At the same time, if I put a tomato plant, it will grow a tomato, and not sunflower. It will do exactly as it's told by the seed that was in the ground. And together they will produce something beautiful. But the beauty of it is that it's unique and it's not a mixture, and it's not one time one way, another time another way. It has to be the same way. The same applies with the human being in the DNA. We know that the DNA today, and that's why I'm saying to you, this is so common sense and so easy to understand. the DNA is able to be diverted to any body part. It's one DNA. It's the same, the general DNA made out of 32 components or whatever it is. But that DNA can create nails, can create heart, can create liver, skin, muscle, bones, anything, based on the mom that they direct one part of the DNA to create skin, another one to create toes, the other one to create hands. What happens? If you go back to the root, they all came from the same DNA. In other words, what the rabbi is saying, the way I understand, is that there is a dichotomy here. On one end, it all comes from one, a one that's all inclusive without any boundaries. It's complete. On the other hand, the outcome, the final outcome, would be a very specific, detailed component. So in a human being, you'll have body parts, you will have a mouth, you'll have eyes, you'll have different body parts, but they all started from that same component. A seed, an avocado tree, came from the ground. The ground can yield any type of tree, but it will yield only avocado based on the seed you planted. The same is our relationship with God. There are unique places in the universe where God says they are holier. And that's why anything that grows in that ground, you have to give tithe. You have to let it rest for the seventh year. One can ask, what's so unique? God is everywhere. But the answer is here, God is everywhere, but yet there is another component of godliness that is detailed, and that component will be reflected in one way to a greater way and the other in a not such a great way. And now is the secret. Remember, we study a lot about memale and sovev. Remember, sovev is all-encompassing. Sovev will be representing godliness that is equally everywhere. And in that way, Jerusalem, the Holy of Holies, jail, bathroom, swimming pool, Montana, Arizona, it's all the same. The other part is memale. Memale is one that is fitting based on the specific location of the universe, where God says, now you're going to feel godliness to a greater degree. Just a short story. The previous Rebbe was put in jail several times. The last time, unfortunately, they abused him in a very severe way that he was paralyzed. The Soviets. And they wanted to kill him, God forbid. Later, they converted it to 10 years in labor camp, to 3 years to labor camp. Then they freed him, and they allowed him to leave the country. He moved to Warsaw, which was not under the communist regime. While they were interrogating him, they stripped him of everything. They took away his books, they took away his tefillin, but it did not break his spirit. In the communist and every dictator, part of their warfare is to break the spirit of the human. The Nazis did it with language. The Soviets did it with force, with brute force. So they would say to him, you're just a number, you have no value. So better you stop, better you serve us, becoming an informant, better you change, better you give up, because otherwise you'll be nothing. So one time he was brought in the middle of the night after being beaten up for a few days. And they started interrogating him, and he kept his mouth shut as he was. And they saw that he was very thirsty. So they handed him over a glass of water to drink. So he stopped, he looked up, and he closed his eyes, and he said a blessing with great joy. Baruch atah. So the interrogator, and he drank. The interrogator says, well, what are you excited about? Your life is in our hand. What's this kind of behavior, conduct here? And he turned to the interrogator and says, what do you think? God is not here? God is here the same as he's in my house and in synagogue and in temple. God is everywhere. God wanted me to be here, so I'm here. And God gave me a blessing called water. So I want to thank God. In other words, we need to understand, regardless of where we are, God is everywhere, equally the same. If I find myself in a predicament that I wish I wasn't, that is not great, that is very painful, that is very limiting, it doesn't mean that God is not there. So he was in jail against his will. He couldn't put on tefillin for many days. He couldn't eat. He fasted because there was no kosher food. But as the moment somebody gives him a bottle of water or a glass of water, he takes the opportunity to thank God and be very appreciative. These are the two components of not just with God, but as I said, the ground, a human being, the birth of a child, as we will see and apply it in our day-to-day life. I want to start reading the text on page 788. So the next 3 chapters, the Rabbi is going to talk about Shechinah, divine presence as it exists in this universe, and our relationship to it. And by the way, only based on what we studied until now. Remember, I don't know if you remember, last week we talked about the type of love that is like gold. Remember, like fiery? The previous chapters we talked about love that is like silver. That you awaken after reflecting, like in looking in the water, seeing your image, reflecting on God's greatness, or appreciating what God is giving for us, or realizing that we have an opportunity to redeem God and make him happy, etc. The last chapter, chapter 50, the Rabbi is talking about gold, fiery, not water, where we just awaken up without limitations, but we need to control ourselves. Based on that, now the Rabbi is going to address the idea of Shechinah. 788. For further explanation of the words, did I skip any?
I was just looking at the chapter itself started on.
This is the introduction of the Rabbi Weinberg, and I shared with you based on what we studied. For further explanation of the words of the Yenuka, I told you, is a young prodigy mentioned earlier in chapter 35, where the Yenuka was quoted as saying that the light of the Shechinah is another description of God, which dwells upon a Jew, needs oil, meaning good deeds. Now, what connection do good deeds have with oil, which usually refers to Chokhmah? Oil is Chokhmah, and Chokhmah is Torah, not good deeds. It is necessary first to explain, so that one may understand a little, the concept of Shechinah dwelling, that it dwells in the Holy of Holies. In other words, the Shechinah dwells in one specific area of the universe. Indeed, there are detailed laws defining the marks of respect due to the Holy of Holies because of the dwelling there of the Shechinah. Ask the Rabbi, and likewise any other place where the Shechinah dwells, what does this concept mean? What is meant when we say that a particular location is distinguished as being a place where the Shechinah dwells rather than elsewhere? Surely the whole world is full of his glory, and no place is void of him. So there is no place where there is no God. What do you mean God dwells in Holy of Holies? God dwells in the Holy Land. God dwells everywhere. The Alter Rebbe will now explain that the Shechinah's dwelling upon something means the revelation of that aspect of God's presence known as the Shechinah. Although God exists everywhere, his existence is concealed. But when the Shechinah dwells upon something, this denotes a revelation of godliness. So God is, in summary, what the Rabbi is going to tell us, God is everywhere. But there are places where God is more revealed, more accessible. And that is what Memala is about. Sovev is all the same. Memala comes and tells us there are certain places where you find God more than other places. However, the key to understanding this subject is to be found in the text and from my flesh I see God. Job said that. The Alter Rebbe understands these words literally. From what we see within ourselves, in our own soul and body, we can visualize the parallel on the spiritual level, in the divine emanation and the world in general. So says the Rebbe, Job says, if I look inside of myself, I can discover God. And usually it's meant as a metaphor. The Alter Rebbe and Kabbalah takes it literally. Because God created us in God's image, so our conduct, our behavior, desires, lifestyle, wanting, all reflect God. So if I want to understand God and the way God operates, I looked at myself, learn to know yourself. By the way, there was a famous Chassid, Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac of Hamel. He was a Chassid of the Alter Rebbe, of this Rebbe. And he used to say that before, he was a giant. He was a Gaon. He was a very special, learned man. He says before he became a Chassid, he used to beat himself up and starve his body, saying, all my trouble are because of my body. My body wants to eat, my body wants to sleep, my body wants to go here, my body enjoys that food. He says the body was a hurdle for me to have a relationship with God. I couldn't study all day and all night. I couldn't pray because my body was pulling me in different direction. When I came to Lubavitch, to Liozna, to the Alter Rebbe, I discovered that God created us in his image refers to the body. Now I said, 1 second, the body is godliness. And therefore, I need to cherish it. I need to care for it. I need to discover it. Because the deeper I learn about my body, the better I understand how God operates. So now I treat my body with reverence and respect. And in that way, by the way, the Rebbe, and I was raised by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I was raised, the Rebbe raised me, but when I was raised, I would study and listen to the Rebbe. The Rebbe always would say that the body is a reflection of godliness. Therefore, we should be very thankful every moment for our body and care for it and make sure to maintain it. Not only because it's a deposit that God gave us at once at birth, but also the better you understand your body and the better you treat your body, the better you enjoy the relationship with God because you understand how God operates much, much better. There was another Chassid that used to say that he spent time to care for his body because the Job says, for my flesh, I see God. So you got to take care of your flesh to reflect the essence of the flesh and not to be filthy and covered with mud. Mud meaning spiritually or figuratively. In other words, when you understand well your body, the way your body operates, it desires certain food, he likes to socialize, he wants to rest. When not only you treat your body, but you learn your body well and maintain it, give it a tune-up, and make sure your body is a healthy body, you are having a better access to God because the body is our access, the key to understanding God. Says the Rebbe, now we're going to use the body to understand how God operates, and suddenly there are spaces where it's holy, other spaces are not as holy. By way of analogy, the human soul pervades all 248 organs of the body, from head, the highest part of the body, to foot, the lowest part of the body. The soul pervades the body to the extent that no organ or portion of it remains void of the soul. My soul is everywhere. My soul is not just in the brains. My soul is my toenail. My soul is in my hand. My soul is everywhere. How do I know? Because as soon as I want to do something, I don't need my brains to tell the rest of the body to do it. If my soul was resting in my brains and I want to walk, it will become very manual because the brain would have to give commands to the body, to the legs, and to the hands to operate. And that way it will not be in tandem as the way it is as a human being. That's why I think I showed it to you previously many times. Robots and all machines that are created are mechanic. The way they move around, as much as they try to make them imitate a human conduct, it will never be perfect. And the reason is because it comes from a central command center. It comes from the brains of the robot, so to say, and the nanosecond it takes for the robot to understand, run, pick up your leg, put your leg down, that nanosecond itself makes it mechanical. A human being don't have that. It's all natural, and not because we're trained so well. It's because my soul is everywhere. So when my soul wants to walk or run or jump or speak, the entire body, each one does their part to achieve the soul's mission. Therefore, 248 body parts, meaning all of our body, entire body, is connected to the soul equally in the same way. Remember Sovev? Now we're bringing back Sovev. It's all-encompassing. Otherwise, you will not be behaving like a human being. I don't know if you heard that from me, but I used to share it a lot. There are things I used to share, that's why I stopped. One of them, there is a professor who decided to learn the connection between the brains and the body. The brains meaning the central command in the body. And he was a genius. He was able to discover how does the command, chain of commands work in the body. And he learned that so well that his behavior, he became a very mechanical human being. In other words, the way he started moving is the way the early robots, because every time his brains would say to him, let's eat, he would know exactly how it works, and that would be reflected by the way he eats or moves, and it became mechanical. The Kabbalah tells us, just like my body is naturally flowing with commands, the only reason it is that way is because my soul is everywhere. My soul is part of every part of my body. Therefore, but don't forget, there is Memala. There is another part where the soul will be revealed more in the brains than in my toes. But we didn't get there. Right now, my body is filled with the soul. And therefore, if you want to know where my soul is, everywhere. That's why hurting someone or any body part is equally as important as the brains. There is no change, there is no difference, because every part of my body contains my soul, which is a reflection of God. Says the Rebbe, nevertheless, the soul's principal abode in a revealed form and dwelling place in an all-encompassing non-revealed form is in one's brain, and from the brain the soul is diffused throughout all the organs. In other words, it enters the body through the brains. From the brains, it's spread out to every body parts. As we'll discover later, where it leaves the body, it goes through out of the brains. So what happens with someone who is brain dead and the heart still function? Have you heard of the medical term brain dead? What is brain dead? There is no movements in the brains. Huh?
There's no brain function.
There is no function in the brains, but the heart still functions. That's what brain dead is. If so, why in Judaism the person is not considered dead? And as long as the heart is moving, it's still alive. And the answer is because what brain dead we talk about is the brain function, that there is no movement in the muscles or the tissues, but the soul is still there. How do I know the soul is still there? Because the heart is still moving. Only when the heart stops moving and the brain is not moving, then I know the soul departed the body. So the Rebbe is saying, on one hand, the brain is everywhere in the body equally the same. However, the brain started its journey into the body through the brains. That's where it's found before it founds anywhere else, and from the brains it goes to every other body part. Says the Rebbe, this takes place in all the organs simultaneously, for, as the Rebbe explains, this diffusion of the soul refers to the life force from which the organs derive their vitality, in which respect all organs are equal. This is one aspect of the soul's emanation from the brain to the organs, and in Hasidic terminology it can be termed light, a revelation which is equal throughout. A second aspect of the emanation that the organs derive from the soul, which is in the brain, is the following. So the first thing is the Rabbi is saying it's equally in all over the body. However, it started from the brain, and from the brain it spread out equally at the same time, simultaneously. Moreover, each organ received from it, the soul, a different form of life force and functional power appropriate to it, according to each, the organ's composition and character. And the Rabbi is going to talk about different body parts. So the soul will actually give out and spread out to every body part of the body, but at the same time, it will give particular power or energy or talent to a particular body part. And as the Rabbi is going to explain that, in other words, the difference between the functional ability of one organ and that of another does not derive from the organ itself, like water in a colored glass, for example, which takes on the color of the container or containing vessel. Rather, does each organ draw from the soul its ability to see or hear, and so on, as the Alter Rebbe continues. In other words, even though the soul has all the powers, see, hear, think, walk, sense in my fingers, but when it sends energy to the hand, it will give the particular part of the soul that is appropriate for that body part, and it will give the lungs one type of energy, and it will give back to the brains or to the ears or to the eyes a particular soul power. The eye receives from the soul a life force and ability to see. The power of sight accords with the smooth and translucent nature of the tissue of the eye. And the ear receives from the soul a life force and ability to hear, the mouth to speak, and the feet to walk. Each organ in the body, in accordance with its composition and character, receives its life force and ability from the soul, which dwells and becomes revealed initially in the brains. In other words, the Rabbi is going to talk about giving feedback soon, I think. In other words, my eye can see because the soul is in my eye. My mouth can speak because the soul is in my mouth. The soul would give out the power to see to the eye and the power to speak to my mouth, even though the soul has the power for every part of the body. It will send out the particular energy to the particular body part. Remember memale? That's the idea of memale. Remember the ground that will grow an avocado tree from avocado seed and a mango tree from a mango seed. The ground has everything, but it will send the energy based on the seed. That's what it will be directed. As we clearly sense how in the brains one is conscious of all that occurs within the 248 organs and of everything experienced by them. Why? Because the brain is the nerve center and principal bone and the source of the life force of the entire body. What the Rabbi is saying here is that not only my brains is giving off particular energy to eye and particular energy to the feet, but also it gets back feedback. When I know something, when I see or sense, it's in the brains. When I feel, when I walk, it's all from the brains. It's the nerve system, it's the control center. And therefore, my eye give back feedback to my brains. My feet give back feedback to my brains. So it's a two-way street. It comes out, but it also goes back to the brain. And then the brain will make the final decision. It's a full loop, correct. I'm going to continue on page 793. Now, did I make myself clear so far, Ali? Okay. Now, the variation in receiving the functional power and life force by the organs of the body from the soul, each organ receiving from the soul a life force and power in a different form, does not derive from the soul's essence and being, that we should say that its being and essence is divided into 248 different parts, which are enclosed in 248 locations, according to the design and the various locations of the body's organ. Says the Rebbe, the soul is not divided into 248 different components, and each component is going to different body part. It's not. The soul is one thing. But that one thing, it includes in itself many, many variations, many powers, many talents. Where this is the case, we would say that within the soul itself, there are already revealed and differentiated the various functional powers of sight, hearing, and so on, and that these 248 powers which exist within the soul are enclosed within the body's 248 organs, each in its appropriate location. We cannot, however, accept this approach. Why? Because, according to this, it would follow that the soul's essence and being is designed in a physical design and a likelihood and a likeness and structure similar to the structure of the body, God forbid. Just as the organs of the body have various shapes and forms, so according to this outlook are the functional powers, while still within the soul, different from each other in form. But again, we cannot accept this. Did you understand that? Wow. If the soul is made out of 248 components, then there is no much difference between the body and the soul, because the body made up of 248 parts. Each part has a specific talent and function, right? The leg, the hand, the fingers, the cheeks, the head, the ears, the eyes. If you say that the soul is made out of 248 parts, then it's like a body. It's finite. Finite, meaning it's limited to its numbers. You can say its quality is greater than the body, but yet in quantity, it's also divided by different powers. And that creates limits to the soul. And it's impossible because the soul then will not have the power to give life to the body. Therefore, just a minute, let me finish, I'm sorry. Therefore, the soul is an all-encompassing, very powerful, that has unlimited resources. And it's never broken into more than one power. Why is it so important? As we'll see about godliness soon. Because my limitations is only my imagination. How many times you heard that? A human being, why are we so craving to watch the Olympics? Let's not talk about soccer. Yeah. Why do we go for the Olympics? And every time somebody breaks the record, no, two things. Everybody's excited about it. And number two, within a couple of years, you'll have other people breaking that record. You know that, right? We talked about it, right? Because the ceiling, there is a glass ceiling that we all have. And as soon as we hear someone who is swimming with half a second sooner he finishes, within 5 years, you'll have 3 more people who are reaching that goal. And now we will take a couple of years for someone to break that record. I think I shared with you a doctor here in town, a cardiologist, who told me that they discovered in the Olympic training that the trainees, the coaches, when they cheated the players, telling them that you are too slow, they're not too slow, telling them that they were a minute late, I'm sorry, a second longer, instead of 10 seconds, you did it in 11 seconds, you have to do it faster. It really made them do it much faster. In other words, the human body or the human soul is finite or limited only by my imagination. Nothing should stop me from reaching my goals. I can speak about myself as an example in many parts, but I'm sure everybody will have that, so I'm not unique in that way. Harry, do you understand that? It is so powerful because my children, for example, how many times they say to me, I can't do it. And I say, what do you mean you can't? Who told you you can't? Well, nobody does it. Doesn't mean anything. Well, I've never tried it. Doesn't mean I have no energy or I'm unable to. You do. You just need to find it. Search for it. Wait a day. You'll be able to. I'm speaking to myself. I'm not speaking about anybody else. We should never be limiting ourselves. And that's the uniqueness of the soul. If the soul was made of 248 different powers, it means the soul is like a body. It's a physical, finite machine. The idea for my body, I imagine God, is just like God has no limitations, so am I. Where is it expressed? With the soul in the body. So is the body able to see? Yeah. How far? As far as I can imagine. Because if I would be able to imagine to see farther than what I see, I'll be able to. The soul has no limitations. A good example for it, which is obvious, is the ground. When did we discover tomatoes? 200 years ago? Or kiwi? There are many plants. When we combine plants together, like, what do you call them? Nectarines, huh? Graftings, nectarines. Today they are natural. No one will tell you that the ground has a finite number of plants it can produce. If someone tells you that, they need to be evaluated. Or if someone says, check what they smoke.
Were they smoking?
Why? Because in practice, we see that as soon as the pineapple is discovered in Hawaii, you can put it, provided you give it the proper environment with the weather and the moist, etc., the ground will produce whatever you ask it. Because the ground has no limitations. How many times did I tell you that the Torah tells us the treasures hidden in the ground, we did not even begin to scratch the surface? Anybody heard that from me? People are worried about the limitation of silver. Anybody? Did we ever discuss that? Gold has no actual function other than for jewelry and the Holy Temple. Silver is a conductor that is used, I believe, in every computer. Every computer would have a little silver. Used to be for film. Remember the cameras? It's made out of with silver. Silver has a lot of functions, and I think there are things that we cannot survive without. A lot of machines that has some parts of it that must be,
Conductor.
it's a conductor, better than anything else, right? So people, 20 years ago, somebody told me, start storing silver, because in 5 years' time, there will be no silver around. Not the value will go up, but if you want to get healthy with medication, machines, you will need to have silver. Otherwise, this guy's whatever. There is nothing short in our underground. You just need to dig and find it. There is no limit. The treasures, what the ground contains, both on the surface and below, is we never even start scratching. Because the ground, in my opinion, is a good example to understanding the soul. The soul has no limitations. Whatever you plant in the soul will produce. Just take care of it, water it, make sure there is no poison, it's not contaminated, make sure the environment is there, make sure you care, and you weed out all the weeds. You will be able to grow any plants, any seed, any fruit you want. And that's what the rabbi is saying. So from one side, the soul is everywhere, all over the body. The soul begins the body journey by entering the brains. From there, it goes to every part of the body, but it will travel to the particular body organs according to the need. So the power to see will go into the eye. The power to speak will go into the body part, the organ of the mouth. The power that the liver needs to extract the blood or clean the blood will go into that body organ. However, says the Rebbe, it's not because they have those components. The soul possesses all 248. It's not true. Because if it possesses all the 248, you don't need to make it into the body. It can exist within the soul. It's similar to the body, limited and finite. The soul is unlimited. It's one single power that's superpower that includes them all, encompasses all, and sends out the particular energy that is needed for each particular body organ. I hope I made myself clear. Ali?
Just beautiful.
Rather, I'm reading on page 794. The soul entirely a singular, rather is the soul entirely a single spiritual entity. It is one, a single entity, and two, a spiritual entity. As a single entity, its oneness is plain and uncompounded. As a spiritual entity, its spirituality is in a form for which is divested of any physical design and of any type of definition of physical space, measure, or limitations. The soul is free of all such dimensions by virtue of its intrinsic being and essence. In fact, the soul is so plain and free of all these that even when it is actually enclosed within the organ, they cannot affect any change in the soul. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe continues, and it is not valid to say concerning the soul's being and essence that it is in the brain of the head more than in the feet, since its being and the essence is not subject to the concept and dimension of physical space and limitation. It is therefore impossible to attribute to the soul this limitation of being more in the head than in the feet. Says the Rebbe, even though it ended up in a particular body organ, giving a particular power, when you go back to the soul is plain and simple one. As I share with you, today it's easier with the DNA. DNA will create many body parts, but in the DNA, it's one DNA. Another simple example that comes to mind, and I share many times, is the power of electricity. The power of electricity will cool out the ground, the room with air conditioner, heat with a heater, make a car run, make a mixer, an oven, a refrigerator, different components. Now, does electricity has the power to cool, and does electricity has the power to heat, and does electricity have the power to encircle a wheel? No. It's one single power, but it's so powerful that it would send particular energy based on the machine that it connects to. So does the machine affect the electricity back to the generator where it came from? The answer is no. There is no such thing. I hope I made myself clear. Rather, page 795. Rather, 613 kinds of functional powers and vital forces are included within the soul, within its being and essence, to become actualized and to emerge from their concealment and inclusion within the soul's essence. Previously, while still included within the soul's essence, they are only in potential and therefore hidden within the soul, not even a functional powers which are revealed as such while still included within the soul. In other words, within the soul is concealed a potential for 613 potential powers to become actualized and to emerge from concealment, that is, to become revealed. And I explained that in details. Continue. In order to animate the 248 organs and 365 blood vessels of the body through the functional powers of the divine soul, becoming enclosed within the animal soul, the animating or vital soul, which also possesses the corresponding 248 and 365 functional powers and vital forces. And therefore, says the Rebbe, the soul is all-encompassing. On the other hand, it will create particular detailed powers within each body organ, and then we'll get back feedback from that body organs. We continue on page 796. Now, concerning the flow of all the 613 kinds of functional powers and vital forces which are drawn from the concealment of the soul, where they are previously hidden and from where they are now drawn to the body to animate it, concerning this flow, the sages have said that the principal dwelling place and abode of the flow and revelation of the previously concealed powers and forces is entirely situated in the brains of the head. So again, not only the soul starts from the brain, but that's where it is in all general, and therefore every other body organ that receives a soul power for the particular body organ receives it from the soul through the brains. Concerning this flow, the sages have said that the principal dwelling place and abode of this flow and revelation of the previously concealed power and forces is entirely situated in the brain of the head. Therefore, it is they, the brains, which first receives the power and life force appropriate to them according to their composition and character, namely intellect, which is divided into the three intellectual faculties called Chabad, Chochmah Bina Daat, and the faculty of thought and whatever pertains to the brain. All these receive their life force from the soul before the other parts of the body. Therefore, they got it first. And not only this, that the brains receive their own life force before the other organs, but also the overall flow of all the individual streams of vitality to the other organs is also first included and enclosed in the brains of the head before it becomes revealed in the individual organs. And it is there in the brain that the core and source of the said flow exists in a form in which the light and vitality of the entire soul are revealed. In other words, when the general flow of vitality reaches the brain, then the light and vitality of the entire body begins to be revealed, and from there the brain radiance flows to all the other organs, each of which then receives the functional power and vital force appropriate to it, according to its composition and character. The power of sight is revealed in the eye, the power of hearing in the ear, and so on. Did you understand? This is based, again, as I explained. In other words, at which point does the power of sight comes into existence, ready to be revealed in the eye, and a power of hearing in the ear? Only after the overall life force of the whole body is drawn into the brain in a general manner, then a radiance is drawn from there to each organ, a radiance which is already constituted in accordance with the particular characters of the individual organ. So again, over and over, the brains receive the soul first, and the soul over there is all in general, and that's the uniqueness of the brain. Then the body needs 248 different talents, different organs to fit within each organ's function. And that's where it's split, and it will be sent out to each organ. But all functional powers flow from the brain, as it's known, for there in the brain is located the principal dwelling place of the entire soul in a revealed form. I hope you understand so far. Ali, do you understand? Oh, Baruch Hashem. So, although a little bit more and we'll stop, okay? Although the soul actually exists all over the body equally, with no difference between one organ and another, yet the principal place in which the soul is revealed is in the brain. So now we are learning something new. The soul is all-encompassing. The soul is all-inclusive. Yet the soul in its entirety is in the brain. You will not find the entire soul in its entirety in any other component, any other body part. Since there, in the brain, the overall life force which flows from the soul is revealed. It is only the individual faculties of the overall life force which shine forth and radiate from there, the brain, to all the organs of the body, just as light radiates and shines from the sun into the innermost of rooms. Even the heart, which is a central organ from which all other organs receive vitality, the heart diffuses to all organs, receives its own vital force from the brain, which is why the brain naturally dominates the heart, as explained above. We studied before that we need to control the heart. The brain should control the heart. That's why the brain is above the entire body, including the heart. In chapter 12, it was explained that man is created with a natural supremacy of the brain over the heart, and the reason is explained here. because the heart, despite its certain centrality, must in turn receive its own vital force from the soul through the medium of the brain. So far we understand the way the human being functions. The rest of the chapter, the rabbi will apply it into the God, into the way God functions in our Shechinah resting upon us. So what did we study? Just to summarize. The human body is made out of the soul. The soul is limitless and has unlimited potential. When the brains comes, it enters the body through to the brain first. From the brains, it does not possess 248 different functions, but it possesses one that's all-inclusive, just like power of electricity. Then it sends what energy is needed to each body component, and it will create that component and send it out to the body parts. That's why the body part later will give feedback. If I'm hurt, if my finger is on the fire, it hurts, my brain will feel it. If I'm unable, my eye is hurting, the brain will feel it. If I see something or hear something, the brain will sense that because they send back the feedback to the soul. So in the soul, not only it was the first, but the soul is the central command. It's a center where all the soul is revealed in a way that nothing else can possess the soul in that way. Even the heart, which is the source of energy to the entire body, because the blood is giving it life, must come to the brains to receive its life force first. And the reason is because the brain should control the heart, as we discussed in chapter 12. Now we understand that there are two components to the human. You have the soul, which is in the brain, which is overall, all over, equally the same, not subdivided into components. But then you have another part of the brains, which is divided into many, many organs, many, many powers that will fit appropriate to each body organ. Each the same way from the brains. That's the way God operates, as we'll discover. And as I shared with you, Sovev and Memale, you have all-encompassing, and then you have the Memale, which fit. That will explain why there are parts of the universe were very holy. That will explain the way the ground works, which produces particular trees. That will explain how a child is born. That will explain how come we have respect for all humanity, but our relationship with a certain human being must be totally segregated from the rest of humanity, just because that's the way, just like the body and soul, just like God is operating, so are our life. And we'll conclude here and conclude the chapter, God willing, next week. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Question, Rabbi. Why is it that